Let me try and bring you a live interview and see if I can pull that off at this moment as we continue to cover the protests, the riots really around the country, and the looting and vandalism and now loss of life that is taking place across the country. Let's pull at one of the threads around this issue that has to do with, the fertile ground, I suppose, that is there for any kind of, civil disorder and violence and protests of this nature. I don't know if we can call them protests really at this particular moment. The issue of youth unemployment, that is always highlighted in statistics that come through. And let me speak to Dr. Pali Leholhla. He's the former statistician general, and he has been quite vocal about what he has been talking about, the issue of the youth dividend, that it can be a dividend for us if we tap into it, the youthfulness of our population, but actually if we fail to capitalize and tap into it, we'll witness what we are seeing now, a ticking time bomb. Dr. Pali Leholhla is from the Indlulamithi SA Scenarios 2030 project and joins me now for that conversation. Dr. Pali Leholhla, as I was watching this, I kept thinking back to the warnings that you kept sounding throughout your tenure as the statistician general, because you sat with the dashboard of youth unemployment across the country, and you could see quarter on quarter what was happening around these matters. And you kept saying, as I was saying, that there are two paths here. We either have a youth dividend, which would be a boon for South Africa, or we have a ticking time bomb. Seeing the visuals that you are seeing now, the scenes that you are seeing now, and how easy it is to organize a riot and rampant looting and violence in the country, what's your thinking around those two paths that you've been warning about for many, many years? Dr. Pali Leholhla, I suspect you may be muted.
Yes, I was muted.
Yes, go ahead.
My apologies for that. But before I go into the subject, we learned yesterday that the former president lost his brother, Michael. And this morning he has lost his wife, Makumaro. We need to deeply pass our condolences to this set of tragic events. Before I go into the subject, whatever the president has done and has been incarcerated, humanity still prevails. That this loss of life is very bad at this point in time. But coming back to the issues that we are raising, I think we've been leaderless for a long period of time, including the period of our former president himself, that we never paid attention to this youth unemployment. At the one point, I was presenting to cabinet, and that was the time of drought 2016. I said, it's not drought. Yes, drought, yes, it's incidental. But the problem is that this youth unemployment is not being attended to. And increasingly, that youth unemployment has been such that the youth have lost their share of employment, which they had by 2008, both proportionately as well as in absolute numbers. And that is being transferred to ages that are higher than 35. So the mother cat has started eating its kittens, and the kittens have to see how they survive too. So when you see these rampant lootings that are occurring in the name of release former President Zuma from incarceration, it has nothing to do with that. This was going to come. It just waited for a trigger, and this has been the trigger. And trying to focus on the release or not otherwise of former President Zuma is the wrong focus. The focus is what are we going to do about this unemployment? And I think from that point of view, the eNCA for the last 12 years has been saying it's reflecting very deeply, reflecting like Bruce Lee in his hall of mirrors and smoke, fighting a battle there. So we have a serious problem of leadership in this country that has not focused on the right things. It has focused on looting, and the President Ramaphosa was right that ANC is accused number one in this looting. And of course, the lumpen, as the national principal, the principal of the National School of Government says, the lumpen will also loot in their own way. So if we look at these perspectives from the Indlulamithi scenarios, it's always been coming that the Gwara Gwara scenario will come. The government doesn't work on scenarios at all. go into the government, you'll find that there are no scenarios. With that kind of situation, you know that this government is doomed to fail.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a plan.
Dr. Pali Leholhla,
try to come to them with a plan.
The network keeps failing us a little bit there, and it's a pity because it's really taking away from the really important points that you are making. From Indlulamithi Scenarios 2030, you spoke of what is known as the Gwara scenario. And from what I'm hearing, you are saying that we are starting to see the realization of that scenario that you painted. Just take us back to what that scenario looked like as opposed to the other scenarios that you painted.
Well, the Gwara scenario is connecting to the Skedonk scenario. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we're battling a bit. I'm wondering, Dr. Pali Leholhla, because I really want us to have this conversation properly. What are the chances that I could let you go for now and you try and find an alternative connection and then we can test and reconnect because I really think that your contribution really is important in trying to help us make sense of the events that just don't make sense at the moment. So I'll ask that we try and sort that one out and see if we can sort out the connection with Dr. Pali Leholhla. Just a word on what you heard there from Dr. Pali Leholhla right at the start of our interview. The team, obviously we have to take a cautious approach, more cautious than, I suppose there's more of a responsibility on us as a broadcaster that when you hear of news, as you heard there at the start of Dr. Pali Leholhla's interview, what he was saying about what has happened in former President Jacob Zuma's family. It is important for us as a channel, before we give it that official release from our side, that we are comfortable, that we've done all our checks and balances and our team working on that particular story. So at this particular point, I will really not go any further into that. You will have heard what you heard there from Dr. Pali Leholhla. All I can say is the team is working on it, and once we have all confirmed and all protocols have been followed, obviously, because there are sensitivities around the family as well, we will then be able to give you that news that you will have heard being shared by Dr. Pali Leholhla.